that tertiary. I'm not sure how much of a dirty trap it is for like ENTPs with FE, because I seem to only understand TI as the dirty trap. It's like, oh, I'm gonna try to identify consistency, and it totally fights that thing I'm talking about with NI, because it tries to do that pinning thing, and it's like getting so focused on a pebble that I totally miss the Leviathan moving on the horizon.
Right. Well, this was interesting, like just, talking to you, and half of my brain is going trying to observe the NI, and it's a more, it's a cohesive thing. The
A little
units of
list of
NI
language is what
are,
it is.
I don't know. It does appear to be it's the gist of things,
Yeah, yeah.
or something like that, and and it's interesting to see the difference. But it's like the gist of things extrapolated from the actual things,
Right.
because that's that SE, I guess, in there.
Yeah.
And I guess mine is, the other version, the whatever I'm doing is more the not necessarily the consistency, but it's just like the establishment of things based on the possibility of things. I don't know. But the basis is always the possibility of things, not the actual things, which gets dadgum confusing in its own way.
I kind of feel like I'm probably going to butcher this as I try to create this witty remark. But I kind of feel like, ENTP, INFJ, like all these different type interactions and sort of the philosophies that can be born out of, talking in a manner that is conducive to learning. It's really all of us checking in with one another and defining with certainty that none of us quite know what the fuck we're talking about. And it's as I said, it's like when I say that, I'm trying to allude to some bigger picture. So when I say that we don't know what we're talking about, I don't mean, okay, the butt stops there. We don't know what we're talking about. There it is. That's the end. No, it's the whole reason why I'm saying that is because it's belaying some. It's like, I'll use this as a metaphor. I'm pointing to a telescope because there's something I want you to look at. And I think oftentimes what frustrates me is that people are like, oh, okay, that's a really cool telescope. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to fucking use it.
I see that. Yeah, I get that. I like that. Yeah. Well, so here's an interesting, because you're talking about, this sort of discussion confirms that you don't know everything. The way I always feel is see, this is this building of my pattern. I don't feel like I am any more or less aware of what I don't know, but I feel like after such a conversation, I do have the feeling that I know more, and that my construct has grown a little bit in some way.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. When I use the term or, these different things, when I'm saying that we don't actually know, or that we know, something like that, or like saying that, like when you hear these statements, like knowledge is, well, whatever it is, like knowledge is that in knowing that you know nothing, or just like different shit like that. It's like, it's not to say, okay, we don't know anything, let's all go home, because that would probably piss you off, because you're like, no, I do know things. And it pisses me off because if people take it as me saying that they don't actually know things, it pisses me off because I'm saying, I know that that's what I said, but that's not what I said.
Right.
And I think that's annoying, especially when people are more inclined to think about things a bit more rationally, or more towards definement, when you're inherently aiming for that gist quality.
Right.
It's it's aggravating. Like, I think in my conversations with Eric, a lot of times I'll piss myself off, um, because I want to communicate understanding to him, and when I try to use NI to do that, it doesn't work. um, it's like I mean, like he I mean, and really the thing is, I can't get. Well, I mean, I absolutely can get upset, but it's not conducive to what I want me being upset. Like, if I were to get upset at him for not understanding what I'm talking about, me even bringing up the issue to begin with is me following my inclinations, and him, drawing the information out of what I'm saying that he finds revelatory or interesting is his inclination, and understanding. See, this is what I'm talking about with the personality stuff. I'm not just saying, oh, we have all these different personalities, and isn't it so cool that we're all basically just different parts of one whole, so we ought to just be kumbaya. I'm not saying that to make the fucking buck stop there, because there's something to be understood and there's something to be gained from the knowledge that we operate differently, because it has a transformative process. Like, I guess that's part of what draws me to typology and all these different things, is by understanding that the distinctions are real and that the shades are real, allows you to gain a better understanding of the gist, allows you to gain, it is more conducive to peeking behind the veil. So that's why, even though I speak in these abstract terms, I am very, very much driven to getting the particulars pinned.
Yeah, well, I was going to relate it back to your kind of like moving beyond the veil or moving levels. Like, if you've got a concept that is amorphous, or which to me would be the geometric equivalent of this ambiguous, well, it's just there, and let's not actually examine this as if it's a real measurement of difference or whatever.
Uh-huh.
You can't find anything beyond that. That's not uncertainty or possibility. That's simply, you're not looking there. It's like a fog. It's like a cloud, and it's useless, and you can't find anything off of it.
So, since you like geometry, I want to, because I'm really just trying to hammer this, like these archetypes, so that they're more difficult to ignore. So that, like, the image of what's effectively non-image gets ingrained. Okay, so if you like geometry, let's say that it's like, my focus would be watching, like, let's say that you have a form mutating into different shapes. You have a triangle, a square, it's like maybe not necessarily just a triangle, maybe just different polygons.
Right.
But watching the change over time, not to see what it turns into, but the differences. And in the differences, there's a shape that never gets shown because it's in the differences. It's in the in-between.
It's the you're taking the differential of the equation.
Is that what you would call it?
Yeah. So, like, if I can relate it to calculus if you'd like.
Yeah. I mean, yes. The meeting of worlds, NISE and NISE, NESI. It's like, if we can put our information together, that we will be able to figure out that we in fact don't quite know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So like, my concept is it's. I tend to have a multi-dimensional kind of geometry sort of, but I've always found great use in comparing, in relating different dimensional levels.
Yeah,
of
if
geometry.
you can relate it to mathematics,
about,
we're
like,
all the better.
Two-dimensional calculus or something. You've got the graph of a ball that's being thrown, right?
Uh-huh.
And so what you're seeing is the ball went from here to here, and you see the shape of its movement, right? And then you can take you take the derivative of that equation of the path of the ball, right?
Uh-huh.
Which change over time. And the first derivative is, what's the first derivative? The first derivative is the speed of the ball at any given time, I think. And the second derivative, the derivative of that, is the acceleration. And so that's your to me, I related what you said immediately to like using derivatives to find the acceleration, because it's not what's there, and it doesn't exist without the change, but it is a thing, and you've just got to take a couple of levels, and it can be calculated. It is there, and it is a thing, but it ends up being a totally different equation, different line or whatever.
So if you're trying to see what God sees, I want to be careful how I say this. Maybe I don't need to relate it in that way, but immediately I was reminded of like when you were talking about the more like differentials and stuff like that. I kind of felt like NI was more like trying to track, in a way, like dark matter or dark energy, like sort of relating the physical, if you want to call those things that, but the existential, like there's an existential component to dark energy and dark matter, but it's like forces in a way, but I don't know, it's like,
yeah, what immediately popped into my head there was the difference, like thinking of calculus or mathematics, is taking the derivative is a reduction, and a not necessarily reduction, but it moves towards kind of a more linear, more conceivable, less complex equation, right?
uh-huh.
It moves it not in the direction of infinity. It moves in the other direction.
Yeah.
While integrals, which is the opposite, I was thinking a while ago of any, and that we're talking about magnitudes of infinity, and integrals are mathematically capable of conceiving of infinity. Or an interesting thing, you can do with an integral, you can calculate one of the fun things, you can calculate like the surface area of a shape that goes to infinity. Even though you know that it goes to infinity, you can calculate a finite physical space to it and stuff like that. And I was thinking of any doing stuff like that, and these, quantifying these units of infinity.
Yeah,
but always
yeah,
working more in that direction.
That was the thing that popped into my mind, was that like if your focus is more on infinity and my focus is kind of like on knowing the thing, then it's like, I think it's interesting how it's like
zero. You're moving towards origin, and I'm moving towards infinity, or looking that direction.
I think what's really cool is like, because immediately where my brain's going is like, so what if we combine these? So what sort of concept can we come up with? And like that's kind of like what you get with these, sort of earlier history, sort of religious writers, or like mystics or things like that. It's like this concept of the almighty, as you might call it, being knowable yet infinite. Like knowable in some meaningful way, yet beyond comprehension. You're like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And it's like, well, that's the thing. It doesn't make sense because I'm not going to say because, but it seems like we're skewed one way or another in how we understand it.
Yeah.
Or we have proclivities to understanding it in one way or another. And
it's the framework and the context in which you're capable of conceiving it, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I think that can be changed. Like, I think that you're going to have a way of looking at it is going to be more the way we're inclined, but I think the actual just awareness of to me, it's the awareness of the construct within which, or what you conceive of reality, what you think reality is or contains, is the limiting factor in how you can explore within it. If that makes sense.
That's so fucking depressing. Because it's like,